Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are finally here, and both its frames per second have the fans divided. Those who think the Switch is holding the game back, those who think Game Freak made a lazy game, and those so high off nostalgia dust they would buy Anthem if they threw in a Charizard. If I'm being honest, I fall into the latter category, but don't worry, I have plenty to say about this game, both negative and positive, so let's jump right into it. Presentation is probably the biggest point of contention in the new Pokemon games. As you've likely heard, it's not great. The frame rate is honestly ridiculous, and there is no reason for this game to run so poorly. Many people have said this is due to the Switch being as old as it is. However, keep in mind this is the same system that ran Breath of the Wild back in 2017. Don't get me wrong, I think Nintendo seriously needs to release a new system, but in this case, I don't believe the Switch is the issue here. I'll go over what I think the main issue is later on in the video. For now, let's start at the beginning. You awaken in your sunlit, fatherless household, and the first thing you're likely to notice are the textures. They look fantastic. The hardwood floor, the rugs, the look of loneliness on your mother's face.
I'm a bastard.
But all this changes once you step outside. The textures for the outside world are just not as good, even when they decide to load. To be fair, I know there are plenty of people out there who think this game looks beautiful, and it's okay to be wrong. Everyone's welcome here. But no matter how rosy your nostalgia glasses are, you can't tell me that this looks better than this. Or even this. For all it's worth, the Pokemon models with their new textures look great and is one of this game's biggest redeeming qualities. The same can't be said for the music. I know I may catch a lot of flack for this, but I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the music. And no, I'm not just talking about Ed Sheeran. It's not that it's particularly bad, but it's not particularly good either. It just seems incredibly repetitive. I do have to note here that one of the biggest issues was with the final battle music. Turns out that was just a glitch. This is what I heard. And this is how it's supposed to sound. Still, at some point, I actually just muted the game and listened to my own music. For the highest grossing franchise of all time, its games should have a captivating soundtrack that makes you excited for the adventure. And the music here just didn't do that for me. To be fair, this is just my opinion, and there are lots of people out there saying they loved it, so I'm not going to hold that against the game too much. But don't worry, they made up for it with their fantastic voice acting.
Let's you and me be best rivals for life. Oops, couldn't hear you. I'll say it again. Let's you and me be best rivals for life.
Wait a minute, this isn't right. Here we go. Okay, never mind that. But at least we still have Pikachu and Eevee with voice work, right? Right? Damn it. Well, let's look at all the other sound effects. As I mentioned before, I actually muted the music in this game for a while, meaning all I heard was the other sound effects. And let me tell you, this is some of the most low-effort sound design I've seen in a game. Every sound effect sounds like it was ripped straight from Pokemon Yellow. There really isn't much ambient sound at all to begin with, unless you're standing in a sand or snowstorm, but that doesn't really address the main problem here. The sound effects are just not that good. Sounds have been updated slightly, but they are nowhere near the standards that we hold other AAA titles to. Next, I want to take a look at the animation, or lack thereof. Most Pokemon just have a few animations, one for special attacks, one for physical attacks, one for status. Sometimes they get custom animations if they have a special move, but even these are very simple and frankly not very interesting to look at. Here's a quick comparison. Here is the signature move of the legendary for Pokemon Scarlet. And here is a clip of a special move from just one of the random monsters you can find in Monster Hunter stores too. One is obviously more interesting to watch. I get that not everybody will want to watch the whole animation, but Monster Hunter Stories gives you multiple ways to watch it. You can watch it at an increased speed or just skip it entirely. However, with Pokemon, not only are the moves uninteresting, but you can't skip anything. And to make this even worse, the majority of the time spent in combat is just spamming the A button to get through all the text boxes. But I will get more into that in the gameplay section. First, let's get into the story. This is normally where I put a spoiler warning, but there isn't much to spoil here. However, just to be safe, I am only going to talk about the general overview and not get into any details. This game actually has 3 stories to follow. Victory Road, your standard gym badge story. Path of Legends, probably the best of the 3, focusing on finding Titan Pokemon. And Starfall Street, this game's Team Rocket. It's honestly very refreshing to see multiple storylines to follow. I just wish they were more interesting. With the exception of Path of Legends, none of the stories have anything that will make you feel personally invested. I can easily say if you spam the A button to get through all the dialogue, you won't be missing much. I'm not going to get too much into it here, as honestly, there just isn't much to be discussed, and this review is already running a bit long. I am considering doing an everything wrong with Pokemon games video, so let me know if that's something you would be interested in by dropping a comment below. Also consider joining the Player Rebellion by hitting that subscribe button. Anyway, all stories are pretty generic. Any twists they try to introduce you can see from a mile away. But let's get into the main event. How is the gameplay? I'm going to be particularly harsh here. It's just the same as it's always been. It's fun, but it's getting old. Arceus made some much needed changes that Scarlet and Violet just tossed out for some reason. And this is the root of what I believe to be the biggest issue with Pokemon: tradition. Game Freak is consistently adding new mechanics in an attempt to spice things up, but whether it's good or not, they drop it the very next game. First, we had Mega Evolutions, which I loved. Many people did. But like most of these gimmicks, Game Freak dropped it and moved on to Gigantamax. Now we have Terastallization, and it's probably the worst of the bunch. On paper, the idea is interesting at least. It lets you power up moves of a matching Terra type, and even completely change your Pokemon's typing if you find one with a rare Terra type. This does add an interesting layer to combat, but like most aspects of this game, it fails in its execution. It also adds these stupid tiaras when you use them. They just look so dumb. Who looked at this game and said, you know what this game needs? Giant tiaras. They struck gold with Mega Evolutions, and I wish they expanded more on that and just stopped with all these other gimmicks. Another feature I was highly disappointed with was the customization of your trainer. This is another one of those features that was added in previous games that this game decided to just remove. You can edit the look of your face and hair and all of that, but when it comes to clothes, you can choose from 3 different uniforms. That's it. You can't change your shirt, your pants, or add any accessories. You can change your backpack, shoes, socks, gloves, and hat, so at least there's that. But it is a massive step backwards from Legends Arceus, and unfortunately, this is a common theme across the entire game. Arceus added many new features that were great additions that are just nowhere to be seen. Trainer health bar, gone. Catching Pokemon outside of battle, might as well be a trainer's dad because it's nowhere to be seen. So this has led me to do something a little out of the ordinary, and I'm going to give this game 2 scores. The nostalgic score and the critical score. For the nostalgic score, I'm going to give this game a 6.9, which is a pretty nice score, all things considered. Scarlet and Violet do bring a couple things to the table that I was ultimately happy with, such as the open world design and the way you move around the environment. And seeing these characters you grew up with running around in a 3D space is sure to bring a smile to your face. Don't get me wrong, despite how critical I have been about this game, I enjoyed my time with it. I spent easily over 100 hours on this game, and honestly I'm probably going to play it some more. But at the end of the day, I need to take a step back and ask myself, is this a well-designed game? Behind all the fog of nostalgia, no. If this wasn't a Pokemon game, if this was released by any other studio, if I stripped away all the excuses I have made for Game Freak in the past, like how they just aren't used to making console games yet, what remains is a glitchy collectathon centered around a rock, paper, scissors mechanic that hasn't been updated in over 20 years. Which is why my actual review score is a depressing 4.5. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I appreciate you sticking around until the end. Hit the like and subscribe button for more content like this, and until next time, game responsibly.